It was a calm evening in a small-town grocery store in Portland. The aisles were half empty, golden light from the setting sun spilling through the glass doors. Daniel Carter, a 36-year-old single father, stood at the checkout with his little daughter Emily, who held a cereal box like a treasure. When their turn came, Daniel noticed the young cashier, Sophie. She couldn't have been more than 24. Her hands trembled as she tried to scan the items, her name tag shaking slightly against her shirt. Daniel, with a firefighter's trained eyes, knew that kind of shaking. It wasn't tiredness. It was fear. He asked gently if she was okay, and Sophie forced a small smile, whispering that she was just tired. But Daniel's instincts told him something deeper was wrong. The moment he saw her glance nervously toward the manager's office, a glass room on the far end, he knew something wasn't right. Emily, in her innocent voice, offered Sophie her father's jacket. Sophie chuckled softly, but her eyes told another story, a story of quiet pain hidden behind politeness. As Daniel prepared to leave, something pulled him back. Sophie's hands were still trembling. He turned and saw the manager, a heavy-set man with a constant scowl, step out and bark something at her. The way Sophie froze made Daniel's stomach twist. It wasn't just exhaustion, it was intimidation. When the customers cleared, he returned quietly and leaned closer so his daughter wouldn't hear. "You can tell me if something's wrong," he said gently. Sophie hesitated, eyes flicking toward the office again. Then in a fragile whisper, she said words that made his chest tighten, "It's him. He harasses me." Her voice broke as she explained how he made inappropriate comments, brushed against her shoulders, and punished her with fewer hours when she resisted. Daniel felt anger rise in him. The courage it must have taken for her to admit this, even in a whisper, was immense. She was cornered, terrified of losing her job, unable to fight back. Daniel had seen fear before, in fires, in faces of those trying to survive, but this kind of fear was quieter. It burned from within. Daniel walked back to his car with Emily, but his heart was heavy. As a father, he couldn't let his daughter grow up in a world where silence protected the wrong people. He dropped Emily off with his sister and drove straight back to the store. The parking lot was quiet now, the sky fading into soft pink. Inside, Sophie still stood at her counter, her tired eyes meeting his in surprise when he returned. "You came back," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "I told you, I'm not walking away." She shook her head, terrified. "Please don't say anything. He'll make it worse." Daniel's tone was steady, calm but firm. "I know the law. There are ways to stop him, and I'll stand by you through all of it." Sophie's lips trembled. For years Daniel had run into burning buildings to save strangers. But this, helping someone face invisible flames, felt just as important. Courage, he told her, isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right even when you are. Slowly, her eyes began to glisten, not with fear, but with the first flicker of hope. Daniel and Sophie stepped into the small break room behind the store, where fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above. Sophie's hands shook as she picked up the phone to call the company's HR department. Daniel stayed beside her, his calm presence giving her quiet strength. For the first time, Sophie spoke freely. She described months of inappropriate comments, uncomfortable touches, and threats of losing her job. The HR representative on the other end listened carefully and promised a full investigation. They assured Sophie that she wouldn't have to return for her next shift until things were resolved. When she hung up, her eyes brimmed with tears, not from fear this time, but from release. Years of silence had finally cracked open. Daniel gently told her, "You did the right thing." Sophie smiled faintly, whispering, "I can't believe I actually said it out loud." For the first time in months, she stood a little straighter. She had found her voice again, and Daniel had been the one to remind her she still had one. As they walked out of the break room, the manager appeared, suspicion on his face. "What's going on?" he barked. Sophie's breath caught, but Daniel stood slightly in front of her, a quiet wall of strength. "She's reported you," Daniel said calmly. The man froze, his confidence fading. You can't do that," he stammered. Sophie stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. "I already did." For a heartbeat, silence filled the store. Then Daniel added in a steady tone, "If you so much as look at her the wrong way again, you'll have more than HR to deal with." The manager's face paled. Sophie's hands, once shaking, now held firm against the counter. That single moment became her victory, the moment she realized courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about standing tall despite the fear. Daniel's presence made her feel protected, but it was her own strength that finally broke the chains. Together, they walked out of that store, not as victim and rescuer, but as two people who had stood up to wrong. A few days later, Sophie called Daniel. Her voice trembled again, but this time with relief. The company had suspended the manager pending investigation, and she'd been offered extra hours at another branch. Daniel smiled as Emily listened nearby. "Daddy," she asked, "is that lady okay now?" Daniel hugged her gently. "Yes, sweetheart. She's okay because sometimes you just have to stand up for someone, even if you don't know them." The sunlight spilled softly through their window, touching both their faces with warmth. Emily smiled and went back to playing, while Daniel reflected quietly. One simple question, "Are you okay?" had changed a life. That's the thing about kindness, it doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's as quiet as a gentle voice, as steady as a father's promise, as brave as a young woman finding her strength again. In a world full of silence, one act of courage can echo louder than fear.